My name is Claire Monroe. I'm 32 years old, and for the past 6 years, I've been building my career, piece by piece, at Stratascore Technologies, a logistics software company based in Columbus, Ohio. We don't make flashy apps or social media platforms. We build the invisible infrastructure that keeps trucks moving, goods delivered, and supply chains functioning across the country. I started as a junior sales associate, armed with nothing but a public university degree and the kind of work ethic that makes people say she'll burn out before she makes it. But I didn't burn out. I rose. I earned every client, every number on the board, every inch of trust. Which is why it stunned like hell when I heard my name, along with my work, being disputed behind closed doors. "You don't get to take credit for Claire's work again," Ethan's voice boomed from the conference room. It wasn't his usual tone. Ethan, my colleague and one of the few real allies I had left, rarely raised his voice. I stood frozen outside the door, a stack of folders pressed to my chest, heart pounding. I knew that tone. He was done being polite. "You have no idea what you're talking about," came Sabrina Lang's voice, smooth and polished as ever. "I've been developing the Nexera strategy for months. Claire's just executing. Just executing." I took a breath, pushed the door open, and stepped into the room. Both heads turned to me. Ethan looked flushed, frustrated. Sabrina was composed, dressed in a navy pantsuit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage. She offered a cool smile. "Perfect timing," Ethan said, clearly grateful for the interruption. "Tell Sabrina who actually built the Nexera deck." "We're finalizing it together," Sabrina said quickly, her tone rehearsed. "But I'll need Claire's notes by the end of the day." I met her gaze directly. "Actually, the presentation is already finalized. The entire strategy is based on the modular solution I designed to meet Nexera's regional distribution needs. The deck reflects that." Sabrina's smile flattened. "Then I'll need to review it thoroughly. We can't afford to lose this deal." She wasn't wrong. Nexera Holdings represented the biggest contract in Stratascore's history, $50 million over 5 years. And I had been the one nurturing that opportunity from the beginning: calls, site visits, whiteboard brainstorms, late-night iterations on demos no one else had time to run. What Sabrina didn't know, what almost nobody at Stratascore knew, was that Lauren Kim, Nexera's CEO, was my college roommate. We'd shared a cramped apartment, stale coffee, and all-night study sessions. Our relationship wasn't transactional. It was built on trust. I never exploited that friendship, but it gave me a chance, an opening that I earned, one meeting at a time. As Ethan and I walked back to our desks, he muttered under his breath, "She's going to try to cut you out of the final meeting." I didn't flinch. "Let her try. Lauren won't sign anything without me in the room." But then I saw the email. Subject: Executive Review, Nexera Strategy. From Michael Grayson, CEO. Attendees: Sabrina Lang, Claire Monroe. Time: tomorrow, 9 a.m. A chill ran down my spine. This wasn't a promotion meeting. It was a chess move. And I was the piece being removed from the board. The next morning, I arrived at the office 15 minutes early, clutching my coffee like armor. My reflection in the elevator mirrored the calm I'd rehearsed, blazer pressed, hair pinned back, eyes clear. But beneath the surface, I was bracing for impact. The executive boardroom was already occupied when I stepped inside. Michael Grayson, CEO of Stratascore, sat at the head of the table, flipping absently through a leather-bound folder. Sabrina Lang stood by the whiteboard, arms crossed, posture confident. "Claire," Michael said without looking up. Thanks for coming. I nodded, slid into the empty seat across from him. No smiles. No pleasantries. The air was clinical. We've been evaluating the structure of the enterprise sales team, Michael began, still flipping. Given the scale of upcoming contracts, especially with Nexera, we need to ensure senior leadership has full ownership of strategic client relations. I knew where this was going before he said it. Sabrina was already pulling out a stack of printed documents. We're realigning some of the key accounts, she said, sliding a folder across the table toward me. Inside was a memo, sterile, formal, and final. Effective immediately, Nexera Holdings would be transitioned under Sabrina Lang's direct portfolio. My name wasn't anywhere on the revised org chart. I looked up, locking eyes with Michael. So after 10 months of development, travel, and negotiation, I'm being removed from the account? Michael folded his hands. This isn't personal, Claire. Sabrina has seniority and direct board oversight. We believe it sends a stronger message at the C-suite level. Lauren Kim expects me in that meeting, I said, voice low but firm. I've been her point of contact since the first handshake. Sabrina smiled faintly. Lauren is a professional. She'll adapt. My jaw clenched. I wanted to shout. I wanted to rip the memo in half and throw it at both of them. But I didn't. Because in that moment, something deeper settled in my chest, not rage, not shock. Clarity. They hadn't just reassigned me. They had made a decision. One based not on results, but on resume. On politics. On pedigree. I stood slowly, sliding the folder back toward the center of the table. Noted, I said. Thanks for the update. Michael looked mildly surprised. Sabrina didn't flinch. But as I walked to the door, Michael added, we'll be announcing Sabrina's new title at the All Hands next week. Hope you'll join us. I paused with my hand on the door handle. I might be tied up, I said. But I'll be sure to read the transcript. Then I walked out, quietly, professionally. And just like that, I stopped waiting for recognition from people who only valued titles more than the work behind them. Back at my desk, I stared blankly at the email Sabrina had just forwarded. The subject line read, Updated deck, final for client delivery. No acknowledgement of my work. No CC. Just a clean handoff, like I'd never existed in the process at all. I closed the email without opening the attachment. There's a quiet kind of devastation in being erased. Not fired. Not reprimanded. Just edited out of your own accomplishments. It took me exactly 30 seconds to decide what to do next. I opened my personal Gmail, found Lauren Kim's contact, still saved as Kimmy K. Cherryblossom from our college days, and drafted a message. I kept it short. Clear. Professional. Subject, quick catch-up. Hi Lauren. I hope this finds you well. I heard from internal channels that StratusCore has reassigned your account. Since I've been your primary contact throughout this process, I wanted to personally thank you for the partnership and your trust over the past year. If you'd like to discuss the transition, or anything else, I'd be happy to connect. Warmly, Claire. I hovered over the send button for half a breath. Then I clicked. 15 minutes later, my phone lit up. Lauren Kim, calling. I stepped out into the hallway and picked up on the first ring. Claire, she said without greeting. Her tone was brisk but not cold. I just saw the new contact memo from Sabrina Lang. You're really off the account? Effective immediately, I said. No explanation. No warning. There was a pause. Then, I've worked with Sabrina before. Briefly. It didn't go well. I said nothing. Lauren continued, let me guess, she has some flashy Harvard title, zero product knowledge, and a folder full of buzzwords? I let out a small laugh. You've done your homework. I don't need homework. I've seen this play out 100 times. Someone like you builds the relationship. Someone like her shows up at the 11th hour to claim it. There was a beat of silence before she added, do you want out? It took me a second to process the question. Out of StratusCore? Yes, she said plainly. Because if so, I have a door I can open. Not out of pity. Out of respect. But you'd have to walk through it. My mind raced. I thought about the contract I had just lost. The meetings I wouldn't attend. The slide decks now scrubbed clean of my fingerprints. And then I thought of what it felt like to be believed. Valued. Heard. I'm listening, I said. The following afternoon, I walked into a sunlit office in downtown Columbus that couldn't have been more different from StratusCore's gray maze of cubicles. The walls here were whitewashed brick, the furniture minimalist, the air crisp with fresh coffee and quiet ambition. This was Nexalogic's, Lauren Kim's newest project. She greeted me at the door herself, in jeans and a blazer, her hair pulled into a simple bun. Still like oat milk lattes? She asked with a smirk. I smiled. You remember. I remember everything, she said, handing me a warm mug. Especially people who didn't leave me when I bombed our finance final and cried on the floor for 2 hours. We sat in a small meeting room overlooking a park. She didn't waste time with formalities. I didn't pull your account from StratusCore out of spite, she said. I pulled it because they thought I'd ignore the switch. As if a company I'm trusting with $50 million can shuffle key people without consulting me. I appreciate that, I said, careful not to sound too emotional. Truly. I want people in my corner who build relationships, not empires made of PowerPoint slides, Lauren continued. Which is why I have a proposal. She slid a document across the table. I hadn't even opened it yet, but my heart was already racing. Director of Strategic Growth, Nexalogics. Reporting directly to the CEO. You'd lead all client acquisition strategy, she said. Own the partnerships, build the team from scratch. You'll have room to grow, real input, and real reward. Your work at StratusCore proved you know how to turn opportunities into reality. I flipped through the pages. The numbers were generous. Competitive base. Strong bonus incentives. Equity. And freedom. This is more than I expected, I said quietly. No, Lauren replied, this is what you earned. We sat in silence for a moment. The kind of silence that follows truth. That makes space for it to settle in. When would you need me? I finally asked. As soon as you're ready to walk, she said. We're ready to run. I gave my notice the next morning. No theatrics. No grand speeches. Just a short email to HR and a one-line message to Michael Grayson. Effective immediately, I'm resigning from my position at StratusCore Technologies. Thank you for the opportunity. Sabrina didn't reply. Michael responded 3 hours later with a sterile wishing you the best in your future endeavors. I packed my office in silence, photos, a favorite mug, a notebook full of scribbled client notes and color-coded strategies. 6 years in a single cardboard box. It felt eerily light. As I walked out, Ethan was waiting near the elevators. "You sure?" he asked, though his eyes already knew the answer. "More than ever," I said. "And thank you for speaking up." He gave a half-smile. "Straightescore doesn't deserve you, Claire. Never did." The doors slid shut. By the end of the week, news had broken inside the company. Nexera Holdings had terminated their partnership with Straightescore. An internal email circulated from the CEO, full of spin. Nexera has chosen to pursue a different vendor due to strategic realignment. But everyone knew the truth. Sabrina had gambled and lost. A week later, a recruiter I knew from my early career messaged me. "Hearing things at Straightescore are chaos. 3 resignations. Sales team morale at rock bottom. Board isn't happy." I didn't respond. Because I was already 3 days into my new role at Nexalogics. Already leading onboarding calls. Building the architecture for the client's success model. Interviewing team members who, like me, had been overlooked or underestimated elsewhere. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't fighting for a seat at the table. I was building the table myself. By the time Q2 ended, Nexalogics had closed 3 major contracts, 2 of which had once been long-standing clients of Straightescore. I hadn't approached them. I hadn't needed to. They reached out after hearing I had joined Lauren's team. "I didn't even realize you left," one exec told me on a call. "You were the reason we stayed with Straightescore as long as we did." That phrase kept echoing, "You were the reason." I had once tried to find that validation at Straightescore, believing that numbers, loyalty, and results would eventually speak for themselves. But here, at Nexalogics, I didn't have to prove my worth over and over again. They saw it. Every day. Lauren wasn't just a CEO. She was a builder. She backed her people. She gave me autonomy, and in return, I gave her growth. Within 6 months, I had expanded my team from 1 to 8. We launched a new client onboarding system, cut churn in half, and saw record-breaking renewal rates. And while we were rising, Straightescore was unraveling. Ethan called one night, late. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won out. "You're not going to believe this," he said, sounding more amused than upset. "Sabrina Lang just resigned." I sat up straight. Resigned? Effective immediately. Apparently, Nexera was only the beginning. 3 more clients dropped in the last 60 days. Board's furious. Michael's scrambling. I didn't say anything at first. "You won," Ethan added. "You really did." But it didn't feel like winning. It felt like justice had taken its time and finally showed up. And yet, I didn't need an apology from Straightescore. I didn't need Michael's regret, or Sabrina's downfall, or anyone's admission of guilt. I had walked away. I had chosen myself. That was the victory. 1 year later, I stood before a room full of professionals, startup founders, strategists, rising talent, all gathered at a leadership summit in Austin. The panel was called Recognizing Real Value, Beyond Resumes and Titles. When it was my turn to speak, I walked to the podium with calm steps. My palms didn't sweat. My voice didn't shake. I didn't carry the weight of old battles. I simply told the truth. I spent 6 years building relationships, growing revenue, and exceeding goals for a company that rewarded pedigree over performance, I said. And when I was quietly pushed out of the biggest deal of my career, it hurt. But it also forced a question I hadn't asked myself in a long time: what do I actually want, and who gets to decide if I'm worthy of it? I scanned the room. No one looked away. I walked out with nothing but a cardboard box and a quiet conviction. And that was the start of everything. After the panel, a young woman approached me. She looked like I once did, sharp, capable, under-recognized. "I'm in a company right now that doesn't see me," she said. "Your story felt personal." I smiled and handed her a card. "Then maybe it's time to build something that does." Back in Columbus, my office at Nexalogic still overlooked the city skyline. But now, the name on my door read, Claire Monroe, Chief Growth Officer. I no longer chased validation. I cultivated it. In others. In myself. And in quiet moments, when the sun slants just right and the world slows down, I sometimes think back to the boardroom where they tried to replace me. I think about how small I felt. And then I look around and see just how far I've come. They closed a door. But they had no idea I'd build a better one.